currently 6:13 in the morning, Monday, May 20th. I want to share, I'm going to do like I continuously do. I write it out and I take a picture, and I take a picture of the documentation of who was simultaneously being documented, which includes the people of the state, some of whom I name, such as Silverview Townhomes. They are simultaneously being documented. Very easy for me to document that whole community by name. The people of the state, again, are far more than just Silverview Townhomes and all 59 units at Alvarado Gardens. But I live at this property. Everyone's going to federal prison for what I continue to document, which is ceaseless group stalking. In concert with the state, that is at 5:05 a.m., at 5:41 a.m., at 6:07 a.m., at 6:09 a.m. And what I want to document as I am inside of the entity is necessarily engaged in real-time surveillance on an ongoing basis. This is surveillance that's occurring in the workplace as well. So, for example, while I am typing on the computer about the fact that LAPD is flying repeatedly over my office, and Teresa Becerra is creating audible activity, and she's monitoring in concert with them, while LAPD, as I described, something to the effect of doing laps, repeatedly flying over my office, and that Teresa Becerra is group stalking with that corrupt entity while she's engaged in the elements of monitoring in concert with that entity. As in real time, as I make that statement, as I type it out on, which I was documenting on video, the real-time engagement and repeating that criminal activity that the entity is aware of the fact that I'm documenting. You see on video, the entity immediately arrives, flies over my office in helicopter, repeating that which I was typing that it was doing on a repeated basis, while the audible activity is created as Teresa Becerra is on a communication device engaged in group stalking, while the substance of her audible activity creation is asking me questions about the criminal act that this entity that she is a part of committed, which was the assault and battery, documented under the light source at this property. This is, and I'm referencing the entity because the entity knows exactly what happened. This is a psychopath that's creating audible activity under all circumstances. She's group stalking. She can deny that she knows. Oh, I didn't know. I'm asking, but you can. This is not what's going to be the relevance with regard to the federal prosecution. She's engaged in the criminal elements of monitoring, as I documented. She's group stalking in concert with the state that is literally flying over my office, targeting by audible activity, targeting with location in the specific environment. Which again, everybody is targeting in the specific environment. It's group stalking. You're establishing the specific environment. That's why it's there, because group stalking is underway, and the elements of monitoring are occurring while you're on a communication device engaged in a conversation. This is why the entity engages in things such as using my phone ringing as a means of stalking with audible activity. In the same way, the entity is creating audible activity while engaged in a conversation. And the fact that it's occurring in concert with the entity that uses helicopter to engage in group stalking is as criminal as a group stalker being in your face, walking right in front of you while the entity flies over you in a helicopter. That is group stalking you right in your face. You're doing the exact same criminal activity while you are creating audible activity during the course of a conversation in the workplace, and the entity's flying over by a helicopter, and the demon-possessed derive the same gratification as well. This demon-possessed entity is wildly passive-aggressive, okay? And the entity that is stalking in a helicopter is communicating hostility on behalf of that whole entity. This is how they engage in what is bullying someone, and it's pathetic. There's nothing powerful or strong seeming or like a looking strong when you're stalking. First of all, when you're stalking in a helicopter, that shows that you are psychotic, actually. And it shows that the police department needs to be disbanded and removed from their position, because they clearly have nothing else to do while they're engaged in criminal conduct, using helicopters to stalk someone. That's what I want to preface this statement. What the entity is monitoring, what they are necessarily engaged in invasion of privacy of, when I'm documenting the criminal conduct of their repeatedly stalking in helicopter, while I'm literally documenting that inside of my apartment in real time. The entity then repeats sounding at 6:07 in the morning, repeats sounding helicopter activity. That's not a coincidence. That's the entity's pattern. That's engaged in invasion of privacy. Very psychotic conduct, very obsessive behavior. And it is designed, it's supposed to be something that is intimidating or threatening. And I'm going to prosecute for that criminal purpose. But I am letting you know that that is pathetic. Okay, they're in a helicopter right now listening to me. And also you're pathetic because you don't want me to capture you on video. You try to duck and dodge every time I have my cell phone. And then you think it's an act of strength or something, like someone is supposed to be scared of you because you're using a whole helicopter to stalk somebody. So I just want to be clear. The ordinary target individual has a right to not be subject to it. It is that which is inherently terrorizing, because why would you be stalking in the first place? Why are you using a whole helicopter to stalk someone? And that's exactly what you're doing. This is the state's pattern of conduct. Well before I documented the LAPD, these demons are doing exactly what the predecessors, the demon-possessed predecessors were documented engaging in. They are indeed stalking. They're stalking in a specific environment. They're stalking with helicopters. They're stalking pursuant to the ongoing life that you're living, everything that you're saying as you're doing it, and then supposedly controlling you, intimidating you, threatening you. This is the criminal purpose of a demonic entity. And these are the demon-possessed men and women of the LAPD. This is what Dominic Choi's department is wasting resources on. This is something that needs to be known. And I'm also going to speak to the fact that it is criminal, and you're going to prosecute for all of that mens rea that is relevant there, that mental illness that is made manifest there. But it's pathetic, okay? It's entirely pathetic. I am the center of the universe of a bunch of strangers. I don't know these demons that are bearing weapons and sitting around hovering in a helicopter waiting to take their turn to sound helicopter activity, both because they're psychotic, hostile, because the fact that they're demons is known, the fact that they're stalking me is known, and it's also embarrassing to be made known that you're stalking me, that I am the most important person, which is very terrorizing. That's not a compliment. That's terrorizing, because there's no legitimate purpose for that, and you are also representing what's supposed to be a law enforcement agency, and you are literally the criminal. And not only that, it's no ordinary crime. We're not talking about smuggling drugs. You're talking about stalking me. You're stalking me as a law enforcement agency. And by virtue of engaging in that stalking conduct, which is born of obsession, the reason for your obsession is because you're demon possessed, which is a whole other aspect of that terrorism. While this demon possessed entity is engaged in ongoing 24-hour surveillance with simultaneity to what I'm documenting inside of my apartment about them, the entity sounds helicopter activity at 6:07 and at 6:09 a.m., which is psychotic. Again, when you're documenting them 25 to 30 times a day, you're aware of what's being documented. You're looking at that's very powerful evidence that I'm documenting on an ongoing basis with regard to the screen recordings. This is direct evidence of what the entity is doing, and I'm literally breaking it down for you. And while you are aware of that, you are still, this is the psychotic mind state, which is also relevant to terrorism. You have psychopaths that are stalking you and obsessed with you in the face of evidence, one that is already going to face a very surefire prosecution for murdering someone. And your fingerprints are on the knife. Again, I'm giving you the scenario. This is the demented mind state of a stalker that's stalking in a helicopter. That's very terrorizing, that demented mind state is pursuing you in a helicopter. Okay, your fingerprints are on the knife. You've already committed that murder. The victim that is murdered by you, your fingerprints on the knife. They also write you down as a dying declaration. The LAPD shot me while I was. LAPD, not shot me. They stabbed me. Their fingerprints are on they're on the knife, and you're recognizing them, putting them in writing, pointing them out. They are the ones that murdered me. Okay. So that's a surefire prosecution for that crime. Take this outside of the facts of how law enforcement agencies are given way too much. Okay. I'm just speaking to the criminal act that's a murder on its face, and identifying the one who's murdering you. And the one who was murdered, before they died, they also named their perpetrator. This is all the evidence against the entity. And then the entity is also engaged in keeping you under surveillance, and they reason in their mind to continue to engage in that. More evidence against itself, because that's how group stalking is going to be prosecuted. It's not just because I'm making that up. It's because you're group stalking. Group stalking is a committed crime by a community. That's why you have the unnatural environment. So while you are engaging in that, the entity reasons, based on its criminal conduct, its psychotic reasoning is to engage in more of that criminal activity, more murder. Okay, they go out killing more people. All right, to engage in, and again, more people, they're targeting me. They engage in more targeting conduct, but I'm giving you an analogous scenario. They opt to engage in more of that criminal conduct in the face of all of that evidence that it is aware of. And that's what they suppose is going to help them avoid being documented, being found out as the one that is indeed still remaining. Your fingerprints remain on the knife. That dying declaration remains as a part of the record. And you reason in your mind that killing more people is going to somehow help you. If that is under any circumstances even part of that psychotic mind state, because no rational person is going to think that killing more people, going out and committing more of that crime is actually going to help you when you remain directly identified as a matter of evidence as the one that engaged in that first murder. So how is that going to change the existence of the evidence that remains? It doesn't, okay? Based on the ongoing criminal pattern of conduct, the entity is still stalking in helicopter. It's an ongoing admission to the fact that you are, first of all, demon possessed and you're stalking. Okay, I cannot capture you stalking in a helicopter if you're not present. You are continuously present in helicopter. You're present in a specific environment in helicopters and using sirens. That is stalking on its face, and it's also group stalking because it's demonic, and you are demons group stalking. You're monitoring the evidence of your group stalking, and that's what they reason as their ongoing purpose for continuously engaging in that crime. This is revealing what is obsession, okay? And it's entirely illogical, it's nonsensical, it's psychotic, and it is also serving what is great corruption. No police department should be devoting resources to stalking, to criminal conduct, but specifically to stalking, engaging in perpetrating violence against any person, but specifically I'm a woman and they're stalking. That's an inherently violent crime. And as a whole department, they're committing their resources and their helicopters sitting around stalking. And this is already known because I've documented other police departments, and that's exactly what they're doing. And that's exactly what LAPD is doing. And I've documented in the specific environment, for example, when I was driving, before this entity broke into my car and stole my driver's license. And then I have to go to the entity, by the way, to get my license back. California DMV is group stalking. That's what I've already shown. The light source remains over wherever I go. As I've documented before coming to LA, that's exactly the same exact P.O.C. That's why the light source is over me at Alvarado Gardens. Driving to any DMV in LA, and you're going to see the light source over that Department of Motor Vehicles covering up the light source. It's the same specific environment. It's not the natural weather. That is speaking to what the entirety of the state of California is doing, because there's no sun that's over anybody in San Francisco while the light source is documented from sunrise to sunset. That's how the analysis goes. There's no sun that's going to be over any California Department of Motor Vehicles building in LA while I'm showing it's literally over the property, over my apartment, visible through my windows of my bedroom as I stay inside of my apartment all day long, replete with the impossible light activity. And that's relevant also when I'm documenting the maintenance of the light source that's over the Upland Public Library from the beginning to the end of the day. There's no provision for the natural environment to include a sun over any California Department of Motor Vehicles building. Nonetheless, this is what I've documented, and this is what the pattern of conduct suggests is the case. Covering up the light source is nothing other than malice exhibited by a demon-possessed entity that's monitoring documentation, okay? So I just want to point that out. The entity is stalking by helicopter at 6:07 and 6:09, and this is a demon-possessed entity that is still stalking in a helicopter by virtue of my documenting that. And it is no show of strength. This is a psychotic and obsessed demon-possessed entity that is already defeated, and it is entirely pathetic, but being so pathetic is very highly criminal, because no police department should be engaged in 24-hour stalking, having no warrant or probable cause. There is no ongoing criminal case underway. The criminal case is being built against the state. And that's what they're engaging in. Making up they have no legal jurisdiction and they have no facts. There is no actual information. The entity engages in making it up, by the way. But the entity is literally engaged in what is the pattern of federal group stalking and monitoring. There is no justification for the state to keep you under surveillance where you have committed no crime. And let me be clear, even in wanting to stay, under circumstances, for example, where the entity wants, we were investigating allegations of such, they're making it up, they're lying. It's the specific environment. And this is what you will always be mindful of. The entity that's engaged in corruption makes up information based on their position and is unjustly given the presumption of legitimacy. That irrebuttable presumption of public corruption is created upon evidence of what is federal group stalking and monitoring. And that irrebuttable presumption of illegitimacy is created where you are establishing the specific environment. And there is no investigation that you are going to allege is underway in the specific environment. You are group stalking, and you're understanding the malicious engagement in that criminal system where the entity will try to And I dare LAPD to do that. But the entity will try to allege, oh, we had an investigation and that's why we were stalking a helicopter. First of all, nothing has happened. I'm literally documenting my life. And that's also the ongoing benefit of documentation. But the entity is also, under all circumstances, even if they were to assert that or contend that, they're lying and they're making it up because the specific environment controls. They're conducting an investigation in the specific environment. That is what is referred to as the pattern of federal group stalking and monitoring. The specific environment always controls and supersedes the allegations made by a corrupt entity that is indeed group stalking. That's why the unnatural environment is there. So I just want to let you know how under all circumstances you are recognizing the environment where a corrupt government abuses its position, makes up things such as warrants, makes up things such as probable cause, makes up things such as reasonable suspicion while they're stalking you. All right. And so just want to point that out. There is no helpful facts for the entity that is documented as a matter of fact, group stalking. And that's exactly what you're doing under the light source, not the sun, and engineered light, not sunlight, or ordinary street lamp lights that's appearing above your head, creating your shadow above your head. And that's how you're going to capture that demon-possessed lying agency that's abusing its position, keeping an American citizen under surveillance, and then wanting to, and failing on its face. I've shown you the methods of malice. And so that is, I would love to entertain some fallacy where the entity would like to contend, oh, the reason why we were present, the reason why. There is no basis for engaging in what is stalking and doing so vicariously in concert with the people. Remember, the specific environment is there for the criminal cooperative act of group stalking with the people. There is no constitutional basis for group stalking under any circumstances. You don't have any probable cause to engage in group stalking. You don't have any probable cause to engage in what is federal stalking in concert with the people of the state. That doesn't exist. And that's what you're doing in the specific environment. So I want to be clear, even the entity's abuse of its power, making up information, as I've documented, fictitious prosecutions, feigning warrants in cases that don't even actually exist. It does not exist in the specific environment, first of all. Number two, there is no lawful basis to engage in group stalking with the people, because that's what group stalking is. It does not exist. Okay. So I want to make sure that you understand that. It's currently 6:30, as you can see by my alarm. This is documenting the sex offense that the entity is doing, sounding helicopter activity at 6:07, 6:09 a.m. while they're monitoring my documentation, monitoring me inside of my private space, which is within the long documented pattern of conduct. And I also want to be clear, make sure that I specify, which is already obvious on its face. It's entirely pathetic that the demon-possessed agency, first of all, that an agency is demon-possessed. That's very unfortunate. And it is pathetic. You see the posture that that agency is placed into. They are literally made pathetic as a department. They are literally made pathetic while they are stalking, and they're supposed to be the demonstration, the example of excellence. They're supposed to be the example of integrity. They're supposed to be protecting and serving. They are protecting no one. They're failing at protecting their criminal activity by continuously engaging in stalking. You're not protecting your criminal activity. You're not protecting the people of the state. You're not protecting the corrupt entity, and you're serving Satan. That's what they're doing by protecting and serving. They're failing at protecting their criminal conduct, and they're serving Satan, and that is pathetic. And it's no show of force, no show of power or strength, while that entity engaged at 6:07 and 6:09 a.m. because they are hostile, engaged in invasion of privacy of what I'm documenting as I'm documenting it, sounding helicopter activity. I want to go through that verbose iteration of what the entity engaged in at this hour in this morning, speaking to what is the unlawful and very disturbing waste of resources while they are stalking as a whole police department. Okay. Feigning legitimacy and engaging in the business of the people, protecting and serving in the public. This is what the LAPD is actually about. This is actually what consumes their energy, their resources, and my documentation establishes that. Simultaneous reports and information reporting to, we made this many arrests and we helped in this many trials and achieving this much. Let me be clear. That is what is the cover of a corrupt agency that is devoted to 24-hour criminal surveillance. They're entirely illegitimate. And this is the reality of what they're engaging in that they don't want you to know about. And it is shared by the corrupt law enforcement agencies well before I came to LA and captured the Los Angeles Police Department and the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department that are engaged in what is state terrorism while they're practicing what is demonic activity. It's criminal surveillance. Okay? It's 6:32 a.m. and this is POC.